This is Gun Cranks.
Well, hello everybody. Yes, it's the Gun Cranks, and I'd like to wish Happy Kwanzaa to all of our viewers who celebrate Kwanzaa. I got nothing there.
Yeah, you can't do that because we all know what you're saying.
No. Well, I'm being told by the producer in my
Only if
I don't
you
know if the
play.
producer's in my ear or in my head, but she's saying keep going, keep going.
brain.
So, okay, well, we've now wished everyone Kwanzaa and any other holiday that you might celebrate this time of year. We are the Gun Cranks. I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat, along with Tom McHale, the editor of American Handgunner, and Special Projects editor Roy Huntington. And we've got a great show for you today. We're going to talk about flying with your guns, which I just did. We're going to talk about crazy calibers, you know, the 17 pin fire and those kind of things. And then finally, we talk about something that I don't think I've ever heard anywhere in the popular press, that we're going to talk about hand loads for self-defense, and we might even decide that it might be okay sometimes. The world is ending, the world is ending. So, exactly.
Don't say that.
Okay, well, after that completely botched intro that I guess we're going to use, let's get the Gun Cranks started.
What?
You guys know what I'm doing, don't you? I'm flying with guns.
I don't know what you're doing, but be sure and wash your hands after. That's all I have to say.
I always use hand sanitizer. No, it's the new year, but I just got back. I traveled over the Christmas holiday. First of all, don't do that. Just don't do it. It's awful. But wherever I go, I always try to take a firearm. And, of course, doing it legally. So I thought it might be interesting. We talk a little bit about taking your gun with you. Now, back in the day when I was an active duty police officer, I actually got to carry in the aircraft itself, which was pretty cool. We got bumped up to first class a couple times. We were very welcome after 9/11, but now that I'm retired, I don't have that ability. So I have to check my firearms in my luggage and go winging my way wherever. And then you've got your defensive handgun, in my case, when you get there. But I've flown with long guns hunting. I've flown with pistols for self-defense, and it's not too bad. If you've never done it, you just got to basically allow for a little extra time. Do you guys, first of all, Roy and Tom, do you guys usually take a pistol with you?
Yeah, for me, it really depends on where I'm going and what I'm doing. I always take I call it a defensive walking cane, you know, because they let
Does it have a sword in it?
No, you can't do that. But I like it because you can take it on the plane with you. And so, which means I can beat the hell out of somebody on the plane if I have to with it, you know.
Exactly.
And if you act a little bit decrepit, people open doors for you, which is an advantage.
Wow. Oh.
But yeah, sometimes I do fly with guns, and you're right, Brent. You just have to allow some time and don't be an idiot. Learn the rules before you go. Yeah.
Well, but the rules, this brings up a good point. The rules are squishy. Mm-hmm. And what happens in real life is you very quickly figure out that you can be right and not win.
Most of the time.
So know the rules,
Yep.
but be prepared to say, okay, I'm going to let you win only because I don't have 6 months and $1 million to fight you in court. So
Exactly. And you stole my first point, which was it's their house, they're going to win. So
Yeah.
you really need to know the rules, and not just the federal rules, but the individual airline rules, because it kind of varies. I just flew Southwest 2 flights recently, and I don't know if it's when this all changed, but used to you had to demonstrate that the firearm was unloaded. Now they just say, is it unloaded? And you say yes, and that's good enough. Actually, to me, that makes a lot more sense, because where are you going to have a negligent discharge? Well, you're standing at the gate manipulating a gun that you forgot to unload, and now we've got a big noise and lots of law officers converging. So I thought it makes a lot of sense, but really the big thing is there are the federal rules that you have to comply with, and the airline has their own little way of doing it, and even the same airline from airport to airport, it changes. Bottom line is remain calm, smile a lot, apologize for creating extra work for them, and I've never really had a big problem with anybody, even when I knew they were absolutely, totally wrong.
Well,
You know-
what I found the easiest way to do that is when you get to the counter is just say, the Second Amendment is my permit and permission. Okay?
Yeah.
Right.
That works every time.
Ass bite.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to end the sentence correctly. So,
No, but seriously, I've not had problems either. It's almost always been very smooth. The only problems I have are those a few situations and places where they don't know their own rules or the theoretical consequences to me for following their incorrect rules, because you are responsible per the letter of the law for this whole process, and you are responsible that no one else has unsupervised access to your firearm. But there are some places, Bend, Oregon, that think it's cool and normal to take your guns into a back room without you there and open them. They'll ask for your keys and do that, and that is illegal. Cannot do it, but they do it anyway because they got the badges.
Yeah.
I found.
Well, that's.
I found
Go ahead.
Every airline has the protocol on their website, and what I like to do is go on their website and take a screenshot and print that out, and put it in my pocket, and then not because you go see. Is that if there's a problem, you can pull it out and say, well, I was adhering to the rules on your website, and I've had that on 2 or 3 times where they go, oh, I didn't know that. Okay, yeah, you're right. And the other thing I found is they get confused sometimes about fired cases. I've gone to shooting classes and come back with empties like 45 Colt or 44 Magnum, that's expensive brass. I don't want to just throw it away. And I think the rule was you're allowed. Most airlines have about 10 to 14 pounds of ammunition. That you're allowed to carry with you. And so I brought back a box of once fired 45 Colt cases one time that probably weighed 5 or 6 pounds. And they said, what's this? And I said, it's once fired, brass. It's empty brass. And they looked at it and they said, well, you can't take this on the airplane. And I said, but it's not ammunition anymore. It's just brass. And they said, no, it's a former container holding a gas charge. And so, yeah.
Okay.
And what they did was,
I haven't heard that one before.
They think it's the same as flying with like an empty propane cylinder, and they literally told me I couldn't fly with it because it had contained explosive gas. And I tried talking to him, and of course I forget it. And so I talked to all the cops over there and said, "Hey, anybody here shoot 45 Colt?" There was a couple of guys who said, "Yeah, I do." And I said, "Well, hey, here's a nice present, It's like, thanks, dude. It was good.
See, it just goes back to, that's the TSA. I've also seen that their rules vary quite a bit from place to place. I will tell you, coming out of Phoenix or San Antonio, they will go through absolutely everything in your suitcase, everything. So if you're easily embarrassed, or if you want to give them a thrill, there's things you could pack. Or I always make sure I put my dirty underwear on the top. They love that. But
But you said something interesting, because like I flew out of San Antonio, and this was about 20 years ago. Things were a little more lax. And there, if you had guns, everybody was like, "Hey, cool, what do you got?" I got this Model 92 and this. Hey, can I see it? Sure. Yeah, okay, he's okay. Let him through. Right?
That's like South Carolina. It's more of a show and tell.
Yeah, it's really funny. My wife Susie flies out of Joplin here, and she's always travels armed, and they all know her, right? And so now it's really funny. I'll drop her off or something, walk up to the gate, make sure she gets in all right, and it's always like, "Oh, hi Susie, got your gun? Oh, okay." It was like, welcome.
you
to
know what
Missouri.
surprises me though, and I'd like to hear you guys' opinion on this. I've never run into anybody I felt like was aggravated by me having a firearm. I've had a couple that were aggravated because they had to do some extra paperwork, but I didn't get the sense that they were like an anti-2A person. And you would think, as much as we all fly all across the United States, you would run into that. And so far, I will say I don't fly into New York very much because I don't want to go to New York. But even flying into LA and places like that, I've never really had any issues.
No, not really. I've had people who just are so clueless about the guns that they have no idea. When I went to a cowboy class one time, I had a lever action 92, I had a side-by-side shotgun, and I had a single-shot Sharps rifle. And well, it ends up that you could only fly, let's see, you could only fly with one rifle, one handgun, and one shotgun. And so I went, this is a single-shot 410 shotgun with the Sharps rifle, because it was a 45-70. And so I opened it up and I put my finger in the breech. I said, "See?" And they went, "Oh, okay."
Oh, yeah.
So we were okay then.
Well, there's a famous story. A friend of ours back in the day, again, I'm not sure if it's just one airline or all of them, but you used to have to demonstrate the firearm was empty. So, ARs that have a little container in the hand grip that you can open up the little door and you can keep batteries or whatever. He took it out, opened that, said, "See, it's unloaded." Okay.
Okay.
Put it away and everything was good.
That's awesome. I'm going to do that. No.
I've flown internationally with rifles, and I got this tip from a guy who travels constantly. And I'm only saying this because we're all among friends here, and we're all shooters, and we're doing what we're doing. But when he travels with a long gun case, he always labels it as something else, like trombone case, right? Another guy says he had a sign on it. He showed it to me. I was traveling with him, and it was danger or attention. Let's see, a synthetic leg for pediatric use, right? And so it's like, I'm not going to steal the kid's, leg.
Yeah.
And but I thought, well, that's really interesting. You just label it as something, golf clubs,
Yep.
And
Well,
then,
hey, for a while there, they were doing the special labels.
Yeah.
yeah,
Like
On the
firearm
outside.
labels, and then throwing it out on the conveyor belt. Like,
Exactly. Steal me, steal me.
danger, gun enclosed.
Yeah. Well, that's
Hey,
a good point you make, Roy, that when I just flew back, some guy, and I don't know what was in it, but a really nice looking Pelican case came off the conveyor belt, and I thought, if I was inclined to steal stuff, I'd guess there's some pistols in that. So I'm not saying don't use your expensive, Pelican case and all that, but it's something to think about, especially I look at where I'm flying into. Rural areas generally not a problem, but you fly into New York, LA, and definitely through Atlanta, there are sticky fingers, contrary to what people will tell you. So it's something to think about.
Hey, that brings up a good point, a serious one. Do not use TSA locks on firearm cases. No. I get this all the time in emails or in comments, "Oh yeah, I use TSA locks for my firearm." The whole point of a TSA lock is that everyone on the planet can open that lock to verify what's inside. I mean, if you think the little TSA key is some secret thing owned by 3 people, forget it. Use a real padlock.
Yeah, you're not supposed to.
Again, you are responsible for maintaining the security of that firearm.
Mm-hmm.
So don't use TSA locks.
Yep. Hey,
Right.
one quick thing before I know we're running out of time here. We've got a producer screaming in our ear, but one thing that's really important, I bet every one of us knows somebody that has gone to a security checkpoint and, I forgot to take my gun out. And that, maybe it's just me being paranoid, but whenever I come home, I always carry a backpack on the plane. I literally empty it and turn it upside down, because many times that one errant shell, 45, or I've never forgotten and left a pistol in there, but that's something I worry so much about, because I really don't want to go to federal prison. So double, triple check your carry-ons and make sure you didn't forget that little shooter that was sitting in the side pocket.
Okay, so Brent, Brandon's Guns here in town, my old buddy. He called me not too long ago, and he says, "Hey, Roy, I've got this, it's 11 millimeter Glicenti or something, and it's a little bit rusty, and it's only missing a few parts, but I thought you might want to buy it." And so I, of course, said, yeah, hang on to it. So when I went down there, on my way there, I was trying to remember where am I going to get some 11 millimeter rimfire ammunition. And there are people in our community who take those kind of things as a personal test of their manhood, and they attempt to conquer it. And I got to thinking about it, and I thought it's a great topic for us, because what is an oddball caliber? What isn't an oddball caliber? And why are they appealing to some guys like me? I was going through my, Thompson Center contender barrels the other day, and it's like 221 Fireball and 222 Remington and 35. I've got all these weird calibers, and it's like when I tell this story, a lot of people just sort of stare at me, and they go, "Don't you have like a 270?" So what is this all about?
Well, I think it's kind of the
Fun.
beauty's in the eye of the beholder kind of thing, because I've had this conversation before, and you'll say kind of as a throwaway of, "Oh yeah, that's a weird caliber," and the guy's like, "Well, I've got 3 of them." So to him, it's not weird at all,
Yeah, no, my feelings hurt,
Yeah, to me, like I got to use a 35 Remington Marlin lever gun here about a year ago for a class, and I'd shot one before, but I didn't own one, and it was like, oh, this is really cool. And the more I started researching it, and it just by happenstance, I ended up with an entire case of 35 Remington in the garage, and it's like, well, I know it's still commercially made and it's not that oddball, but to me, it was really out there. But after I used it, it's like, I can certainly see the merits of this. So now I need to add a 35 Remington to my collection to use up all that really pricey ammunition that's sitting in the garage forlornly.
That does happen, though.
So-
It's like you find a case of 11 millimeter ammunition. Now you have to buy a gun to match it.
Oh, exactly.
So how many here have ammunition on the shelf for which you do not have a firearm?
But you never know.
Literally,
Well.
my neighbor is holding a case that came while I was traveling that he's like, "Why is this caliber coming to your?" "Oh, I've got dozens of guns in that caliber." And then he's really in awe, like, "Wow, you must really have a big gun collection."
Well, that's actually really funny. But you're right. I have absolutely bought ammunition, and then even sometimes the ammunition that wasn't a good deal. And then it's that thing that's like, now I have to find it. You know who's really good at this kind of stuff is our own Tank Hoover. Tank is a craftsman. He's an artist. And so he has sent me molds and had me remachine molds so he can specifically make a certain bullet for a gun that has impossible to get for ammunition. And so he actually did that for me. I had an old family heirloom rifle in this very odd 8x50 rimmed weirdo caliber from around the turn of the century, and I had never been able to shoot it, for the last 45 or 50 years. And between the two of us, we were able to figure out, and darn if Tank didn't make some ammunition for it. And so now my old family gun, I could shoot in the backyard.
Crazy.
I would say too that we have to remember a lot of these old guns, there's some fine old English guns, rook rifles and fine old English single shots and double rifles that are in these odd calibers, and you can actually get them pretty affordably. I mean, this was a gun that would have been maybe $50,000 in the day, and that now you'll see them on Gunbroker for maybe $2,000 or $1,500. And don't always let those odd calibers scare you away, because there's going to be some goofball like me or Tank who's going to be able to help you figure it out.
Well, if you take up reloading, you're definitely going to end up with weird caliber disease. I mean, I've got a wall full of brass over there. I'll just collecting brass for years and all kinds of goofball calibers, because one day, I might have a need for that.
Well, the other thing is, when you get interested in this, is that you'll realize that we haven't invented anything new in about 100 years. Because almost to a cartridge, when someone announces the hot new, the something, I just get out cartridges of the world and I look back, and in 1918, there it is. Somebody had it called something else.
Now, Roy, have you reloaded the 11 millimeter pinfire?
The terrifying thing is I actually know how to do that. and I'm not proud of that, honestly. I'm really not proud of that. But there is something that they're called subcaliber adapters, and there's a company, and the name escapes me. I almost want to say it's MCA, but they were in Alaska the last time I looked, and they make their subcaliber adapters. So let's say you have a 308 bolt action rifle. You can get this thing that looks like an empty cartridge case, but it will hold, in the case of a 308 or 30 caliber gun, a 32 ACP. And if you have a 22 250, you could shoot a 22 long rifle or a 22 Magnum in it, for instance. But they have them for a wide range of cartridges. So, you could shoot 30 carbine in a 308, and you can do all kinds of stuff like that. And I have to say, while it's not really an unusual cartridge, it is a lot of fun, and it is something fun to do. If you're kind of looking to stretch your boundary a little bit. So get a 32 ACP and then shoot it in your 308 rifle, because it's such a bizarre feeling. You're so used to this fire and brimstone, and you shoot it, it goes poof, and this little 32 bullet rattles down the barrel, and it's pretty fun.
See, I just do that with Trail Boss powder and pretty much any surplus rifle. So
that's pretty much true. Yeah, no, you're
an
exactly
easy
right.
way to get the similar effect, right?
Well, I think that I've never really understood, even to this day I don't, as somebody who goes to the range, and we've all been there, and there's a guy next to you, and he shoots 400 rounds of 9mm as fast as he can pull the trigger on the same target. And then he packs up his Glock and then leaves. And I've never really understood that, because you've just spent $200 or $300 making empty brass. You really haven't learned anything. You don't know where you're hitting on the target, and everybody hates you in the range, and then you leave. So
yeah, but besides that,
it's a lot of fun. So I would advocate do something. Have your 9mm, learn how to use it and train with it and do all that kind of stuff, but have some fun and expand it a little bit, and don't be afraid to get some unusual caliber. Right now, I'm in the middle of building a single-shot 32 H&R Magnum rifle. I want to build a rook rifle, like the old British, rook rifle where they used to shoot the blackbirds. And there were always unusual little cartridges and odd guns and stuff. But it's like, I don't know what it is, but it lets you stretch your gray cells a little bit or something,
Yeah.
Well, when you're talking about oddball cartridges, I know you have, Roy. Tom, you've been to the Whittington Museum in Raton, New Mexico?
I have not.
At the Whittington Center, it's their offices, and they've got a museum there, and they have the most extensive collection of every caliber I've ever seen. And it's just drawers and drawers and drawers. And even I, who I'm not really a oddball calendar, have the disease, as you say, but I'm just like, oh, look at this, and look at this. And, they've got African cartridges that, are basically the size of a tennis ball can, and, 300 grains of black powder and a 800 grain, bullet firing at 300 feet per second, but all this crazy stuff. And I'm like, oh, well, I need to get one of these, and oh, I've never seen that. I need to buy some of these. It was one of those things that, oh my gosh, Tom, you would totally geek out there. So go to the Whittington Center and plan on spending a day just salivating over the drawers of ammunition.
And those are the kind of things that make you realize just how little we actually know.
Exactly.
Because you start looking at that, and it's like, and the other thing about these exotic cartridges is I like the smaller ones sometimes. There's a 4mm rimfire, it might even be a pin fire, and it's an actual cartridge.
Yep.
And they make miniature guns, and you can actually shoot them in the little guns.
Yeah. They had one of those. It looks like a tie tack almost, but it fires.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a real cartridge, and it shoots. You can knock over an aluminum can or something like that. So I shot a 4-bore elephant rifle one time, and I have to tell you, I absolutely have no end of respect for those Edwardian guys in Sir Peter Hathaway Hamilton the Fourth, and he's there in nowhere it stands, South Africa, and taking elephants with this gun. But Brent, you were right. I mean, it was like a 8-ounce projectile, from a rifle that weighed 26 pounds, and I can't describe the recoil. I would never shoot one again, and I was geared up. I had pads, I had something against my cheek and all that, and I don't know why I didn't break any teeth or anything, and these guys would shoot multiple times. I've read where they say, though, that they have black and blue faces and their noses are bloody after they shoot these guns. Wow. So I like exotic cartridges, but maybe there is a limit. And so, hey, if you're listening to this and you have a favorite weirdo exotic cartridge that are going to cause us to talk about you and point fingers, make sure you post it down below. Tell us why it's fun and how hard it was for you to bring that old gun back alive again. So, all right, guys, I think this has been fun. Of course, we'll find out what they all say.
Exactly.
Hey guys, I want to raise a discussion point here about reloaded ammunition for self-defense. This is a question that we actually get a lot in reader mail. I think Brent might have an opinion on the topic, but it comes up all the time. It comes up in comments on Facebook and in videos and reader mail. You know, some of us, you know, I don't mean to brag, but are really good at reloading ammunition. And we say, hey,
and are
we
humble
can make
too.
and are humble. Yep, humility is awesome.
Off the
I'm telling
scale.
you. I'm the best at being humble. So. Just seeing if you're paying attention there. Anyway, so we can make good ammunition, right? It's a little cheaper and all that. So the question arises, should you reload your ammunition for self-defense? Now, I've heard that Roy Huntington actually makes his own bullets from dried up fruitcake. And I think we can all agree there's nothing harder on planet Earth, so if you're looking for penetration, that's probably not a bad idea.
That's
but
true.
I want to hear it from the source. Roy, do you reload your own ammo for defensive use?
And this is going to light everyone's hair on fire. Because I don't specifically reload my ammunition for defense. And if I'm going to town and I'm carrying my town gun, I will always use factory ammunition. But the reality is, there are times where I have carried reloaded ammunition in a gun that I was going to use for defense. And for instance, if I'm out here on my property and I'm driving my tractor around and I've got my .45 Colt gun with me, I promise you it's got reloads in it. And could I feasibly use that gun for defense? Sure. You know, which brings up an interesting thing, and I think we need to talk a little bit about the situational dependencies of these things. So.
Well, how about we discuss the reason why that thing came about, this idea of never using hand loads. It came about from a law enforcement scenario. It was ingrained in us from day one. You never, ever, 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 ever carry anything but approved factory loads, because it would be in violation of department policy if you shot somebody with another type of ammunition, which created a couple of problems. Mainly is you acted outside the scope of your policies and procedures, which meant you didn't do what you were supposed to. So the first thing the city, county, state would do is say, he didn't follow the rules, so it's on him, it's not on us. That usually didn't work, but that was kind of the main reason, that good old L word, liability.
Which I don't.
Yeah, but Brent, you can save like 8 cents a round by using reloads.
But is this a triumph of the L word over practicality, though? You know, I know Moss has covered this many times in IUB files and whatnot, and the last time I recall is, you know, Moss advocates find out what your local law enforcement carry and carry that in your gun, because that way you can say, well, I carry the same thing the cops carry. You know, and I think there has some merit to it. What the nice thing about that is I've testified as a firearms expert in homicide trials, and it checks that box off. What kind of ammunition was it? It was factory ammunition, exactly the same as police officers carry. And it's like, oh, okay. Of course, one guy said, oh, so you wanted the massive killing power that only policemen usually have. You know, so that's why it's like you can't win. I know there was another case where, and I think Moss successfully defended this guy who happened to use hand loads because he didn't have a lot of money, and that's where he got his ammunition. And he was actually able to prove that this guy did it because of he had to save money because he didn't have a lot of money, and that he was careful, and he wanted to make sure that these things weren't more destructive than they had to be. You see what I mean? And
That's
It's
an
a
uphill
kinder,
battle.
gentler kind of killing.
it is, but they pulled it off, and basically the judge, but it's subjective, but the judge kind of said like, okay, what's the big deal, you know?
Yeah.
And as one prosecutor told me one time, was he said, if you are defending yourself lawfully, then it doesn't matter if you use a street brick, you know? And
Good
so
point.
why should it matter if you use a hand-loaded ammunition, you know?
See, I want to throw a wrench in the money thing. You know, saving money, that's the only, to me, that's the only upside. You're not going to make more reliable ammunition than premium self-defense ammo. Sorry, but you're not. You don't have lasers and scales and a million automated checks to do that. You're doing it to save money. So how much self-defense ammo do you shoot in a year's time? Per gun, for a gun.
Yeah, oh, I agree.
One box if you rotate it?
No. We're gun riders. We shoot thousands and thousands of rounds of premium ammunition every week.
So,
I choked myself on that one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
well, maybe. I mean, I just don't get it. I mean, why introduce that whole variable into the courtroom for the cost of one box of ammunition?
I agree with you.
Why?
I agree with you. And
You
that,
know?
like I
And
said,
Roy, I'm not. I get you're driving around on the tractor.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that makes sense to me.
I would not use hand-loaded ammunition in my standard, carry gun, and for a couple of reasons. Is number one, there's 2 or 3 ammunition makers who I really trust. I've literally fired tens of thousands of rounds of their product and have never had one misfire or go bad. There are some
Yeah.
other manufacturers where I fired tens of thousands of their rounds and pretty much regularly had duds or misfires, and so I've had people say I reload in a sterilized environment and I use the most careful components that I can, and it's a bit like Black Hills. They actually literally inspect every primer that goes into them. Nobody does that, I mean, they literally, I've seen it, and this guy looks at every single primer and they hand inspect every single cartridge. And so arguably, if you're a talented hand loader, then your reloads would be as effective as somebody who's as careful as that. But it's what Brent said. It's the L word, and it's the status quo in a courtroom case that if you use your own hand load, it throws a wrench into the predictability of the outcome of the case, and it lets people think either you're a bloodthirsty warmonger because you're trying to put so much powder in the case that you're going to blow this guy up, or you're not responsible, right? You're risking and so that's why I'm with you guys on that. Factory ammunition only for defensive ammunition. But if you're out hunting with a reload in your 30-06 and you get attacked by a group of thugs, don't not defend yourself because you're worried about that you have hand-loaded ammunition in your rifle. And I think that's not talked about. So.
Well, there's things you don't really think about, in the courtroom process. I mean, what happens when the ballistics lab needs to reproduce something, to prove a point either in your favor or against your case? And what are they going to do? If it's a reload, what happens then?
Right.
Yeah.
If it's factory ammo, you go source, the same brand and the same lot, and you do what you have to do.
Yeah.
That's a good point, Tom. That's a really good point. Yeah.
Sitting here, I don't want to have a flexible opinion, but I'm kind of seeing the light on both sides of this. If you're not part of some kind of organization or agency where you are directed to use brand X type of whatever, if you're just John Q. Citizen or Susie Q. Citizen, I think it's okay if you understand that if I have to shoot somebody, these questions are going to be raised. And I really like what Tom was saying about, no, I was trying to use the minimum force that I could come up with. If you keep that in the back of your mind and you are ready, you and your attorney are ready for it when it comes to trial, which it will, I can see where, again, as a private citizen, that might be okay. But having said all that, I'm a private citizen now. I use factory ammo.
Yeah.
Well, I think
You're not going to have a jury full of gun geeks in the box. You will not.
You
there
wish.
will not. We will not be in the jury box.
unless you live
right?
in Missouri.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I will say though, because I've seen this, is that it either becomes an issue or not an issue. It really depends on the judge more than anything. I mean, if the judge is a shooter, he may just say, "No, sorry, we're not going to go there. It's irrelevant."
Yeah.
You know, next. But if it's inner city Chicago and you shoot somebody with your self-defense 10mm hand load that you made, that's probably going to be headlines. You know,
Yep.
guy shoots gang member and he uses explosive, you know, ammunition that he loaded, and so.
And
better
I think
shoot your
it is important for people to understand this, folks. Most folks don't spend any time in the courtroom like we have. There are attorneys out there, both prosecutor or plaintiff's attorney, that will say things like, "Well, Mr. Huntington, you just wanted to kill people, didn't you?"
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And they will use stuff like that. Oh, you used a hollow point, which is outlawed by the Geneva Convention because you wanted to see blood spurting everywhere. They're playing to the jury, but trying to make you look really, really bad. So I wouldn't change my tactical loadout based on something that might happen. But I think it's important that you're aware that this is one of the things that could be used against you if you have to defend yourself.
Well, you know, I had a case that I represented the defendant, and he used a 45 ACP caliber gun, and he used just standard factory full metal jacketed ammunition. We shot somebody 7 times. It was a lawful defensive shooting, and we got him off, right? Except 6 of the 7 rounds penetrated through and through. And the prosecutor tried to make a case of how unsafe this was, and he was using military-style ammunition, you know, to shoot this guy, and it was an endangering. Why didn't he use a safer hollow point? But then in another courtroom where somebody used hollow point ammunition, they were taken to task because he was using extra deadly dum-dum ammunition, you know?
Yeah.
And
Extra
they were able
deadly.
to, yeah, and they were able to defend him by saying, well, no, these are proven, the police use them so they don't over-penetrate, and that, you know, and
Yeah.
so you really are, it's a crapshoot, and at least if you're going to stack your decks, then you do what Tom says, which is factory ammunition from a reputable maker, not Joe the ammo maker at the corner,
Yeah.
right? You know, a name
No
brand.
scary names.
Yeah,
right?
no, yeah, exactly. No zinc explosive.
Death Slayer
you know.
3000.
And that's what you carry in your practice with hand loads all you want. There's nothing wrong with that. You know,
The
so, you guys
Deathfire
agree?
3000. I like
The
that.
Deathfire.
Deathfire. Okay, so
All right.
to wrap things up,
Wrap things up.
you go out and you buy Deathfire Slayer bullets and you reload them at home.
Yeah.
With
Is that
black
what I heard?
powder. With black powder.
With black powder.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
Yeah.
We're just
And
kidding.
fulminate
Okay.
of mercury in the hollow point, so it literally explodes,
little end.
and shards of teeth and
All right.
brain.
All right. You're cut off now, and we're ending this segment. Bye.
Well, gentlemen, that was a great show. If you take off the opener, which apparently we're going to use, but we'll try to be a little more professional here at the end of Gun Cranks. We appreciate it if you check out gunsmagazine.com, AmericanHandgunner.com. Tom, give us the quick rundown on our special editions.
Oh, yeah, we got new stuff. The Concealed Carry and Self-Defense Annual is now out and available. It is chock full of great information to help you stay safe at home and out and about. So pick it up. Just go to either gunsmagazine.com or AmericanHandgunner.com, and you will find the links there. And it is in your favorite book
And
retailer.
as Tom noted, it's chock full of good stuff. So, chock full. And we've got one last thing we would like you to do. Well, actually 2. We'd like you to subscribe. Hit your subscribe button wherever it is on your particular device. Make sure you subscribe to us. And even more importantly, so the evil corporate overlords know that people do care about what we're talking about, leave a comment. You know, talk about Tom, be disparaging. I encourage that. But do, seriously, leave us a comment. That's how nowadays they kind of know that people actually care about what we're talking about. So just leave the whole opener of the show off, and hopefully, you know, things got a little tighter from there. So anyway, we're going to close it out before we come up with another holiday to discuss. On behalf of American Handgunner editor Tom McHale and Roy Huntington, the affable gentleman farmer, Roy Huntington. I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheaton. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.